everyone, this is Crystal and I'm back with another 12 by 12 layout, this time using one of the brand new cut files from scrapbook.com. This is the My Whole Heart cut file, or at least part of it. You actually get 7 different files in the one cut file bundle, including this background, another background, the title, 3 card panels, and then you also get the inside of this cut file here so that you can easily back it. I've just used these 2 for today, and I am using it with the Heritage collection from Maggie, Holmes and Crate Paper. So as you can see, I've already cut the background out of white cardstock. This is just American Crafts cardstock, and then I have cut the title out of navy cardstock, and I've already gone ahead and backed that. I used this paper from Heritage called Grandma. It's this one here, and I did that off camera because it was a little bit finicky to do, and I didn't want to make you have to watch me try and back that. But all I did was add glue to the back of the cut file, stick it onto the paper that I wanted to use behind it, and then I just fussy cut around the whole thing using a sharp point scissors. So that is what I've done so far. I plan to back all of these hearts with some of the papers from Heritage. You can see I've already used my stack of papers quite a bit. So I have a few scraps in there, which are great for backing cut files. And then I might do something fun in a couple of the hearts as well. I'm using this photo. This is me and my twin brother when we were very young, probably 5 or 6 years old, I'm guessing. I don't know the exact date of the photo, but that's the photo I'm scrapbooking. I do also have some of the embellishments from the Heritage collection, so I'll be using those as well. Okay, so I am just going to put you on fast forward and start backing this cut file. So I'm going to start by just going through some of the papers and picking out ones that I think I want to use to back these hearts with. So I'm starting with the scraps just because those are easier, and then I don't have to cut into a full 12 by 12 page just for this tiny little heart. Once I get a few of them decided, I'm going to go ahead and start tracing them. So I've taken the inside piece, so when I cut the heart wreath cut file, it left these inside pieces, and I'm just tracing that onto some paper, and then I'm going to cut outside of the line. So I have the paper turned upside down and I have the heart turned upside down, and I'm tracing onto the back of the paper that I want to use, and then I'm taking my scissors and cutting around the outside of the lines that I traced. That's going to give me some place to actually adhere this paper to the cut file itself. So I'm going to do that for all of the hearts, and you'll see me come back here in a second with all of them cut out. Once I have them cut out, I can add some glue to the back and start gluing them down. So I have my fine line bottle with some Scotch tacky adhesive inside, and I'm just adding a thin line of glue around the outside of the heart and then placing the pattern paper in the center and making sure it lays flat. And you can see I have all of them around the wreath. That way I just didn't lose track of where I was, but I've got that all done now. So for the ones that are left, I want to do some shaker pockets. So I have some scrap plastic from some pocket pages that I had cut down, and I'm using the same glue to glue them to the back side of the hearts. I just trimmed it down so that it was a single sheet of plastic instead of a pocket, and then I'm gluing it down, and I've cut them larger than the hearts themselves because I plan to come back and trim them out. So I'm going to do this and set it aside to dry. This is where I failed. This glue did not work, but you'll see that here in a little bit. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and start matting my photos. So I'm going to set this aside and pull out all the papers that I want to use behind my photo. So I have a bunch of scraps again that I'm pretty sure I want to use. So I'm just going to kind of piece things together. None of the mats are going to go completely around the photo, or not all of them will. I'm just kind of picking and choosing which little scraps that I want to use. I like the idea of having a lighter border around the photo. It's a bit darker, so I'm going to go with that lighter pattern paper directly behind the photo. And then I really liked this kind of, I'm not sure if it's a dictionary print, it's like a book page that is part of that kind of collaged, vintagey looking paper. And I'm going to add that behind my photo as well. So several of the things that I add remind me of my brother. So that book page reminds me of him because I used to read to him a lot. So that makes me think of him. So I'm just trimming it out a little bit so I can use the other piece in another place, because you're only going to see that outside corner or the outside edge. And I'm going to do the same thing with this blue paper as well. I will also end up adding a bit of music paper that was in this collection. I think it was from the ephemera pack. And that also reminds me of him. He loves music, and we always listen to music, and I would sing along. And yeah, so that reminded me of him as well. My brother is developmentally handicapped. I'm not sure if you can tell from this photo, but he lives in Kentucky with my mother, and he is very happy there. He still loves music and likes to watch lots of movies. So that's what he spends most of his time doing these days. But this was when we were super young, before any of our siblings were born. So it was just the two of us. So it was kind of a special time for us. Okay, so I'm adding another layer with this paper with the bows on it. Not because of the bows. I didn't really want to see the bows. I just liked the color and that it lightened up the photo a little bit in that final layer. And it also tied in some of the pink colors that I've used in backing the hearts. So I'm just trimming that down, making sure it's all straight. I had a little bit of trouble getting it straight, but I finally got it. So there you go. Just a bunch of thin layers around my photo just for interest and for color. So I can bring back that cut file and the title cut file as well and start figuring out where I want to place them on the page. So this is really where the layout starts getting fun for me, where I start to figure out how it's all going to work together and how I'm going to fit everything on the page and how I'm going to embellish the whole thing. So I hadn't thought about it more than what I have so far. So yeah, this is kind of the fun part. So I go ahead and start adding adhesive to the back of the hearts before I realize that I haven't trimmed down that plastic sheeting for my pockets or for my shaker pockets, which, yeah, that makes it difficult. But the good thing is that none of the glue behind those pockets stuck, so I could just pull them out pretty easily and trim them down individually. So even though it was a mistake, it ended up working out just fine. And the shaker pockets do work out as well. I just end up having to use a different adhesive to get them to stick. And then I also decide to stitch around the entire cut file. So I'm going to take a poker tool and a little mat and just start adding holes all the way around all of the hearts in the cut file. I end up having to go get a different poker tool. This one wasn't quite strong enough since I'm trying to go through 3 layers of paper here and I needed something a bit sturdier. So I struggled a little bit to get these holes started, but once I figured out the right tool and kind of got my groove, it didn't go too terribly long. It didn't take me too terribly long, that is. It went pretty quickly. So I'm just going to poke all those holes, and then I'm going to come back and stitch around the whole thing with some embroidery floss. And that's when I'll start adding the sequins to my pockets. So here you go. I've already started. I've got just some white embroidery floss. This is 3 strands. So when you get embroidery floss, it comes in a 6-strand set, I guess. But I just pulled it in half, so I'm only using 3 strands. It's a bit easier to stick through this paper that way. And I'm just doing a running stitch, something, a back stitch, something super simple. I didn't want to make it too complicated. And I've just added some tape to the back where the end of the thread is so that that stays in place as well. And once I get around most of the heart, I'm going to start adding some sequins. So these are gold sequins in just regular sequin shapes and also some hearts. And I thought that worked well with this collection. So I'm just adding a few. I don't want to overstuff it, but I want to make sure that you can see it and that it definitely adds some bling. It doesn't look too skimpy, but I also want it to be able to move around. So I don't want to add so many sequins that it's not going to be able to shake when you shake it. Okay, so once I add the sequins, then I can finish stitching around that heart, and then I'm just going to repeat the whole thing over and over again all the way around the heart wreath. So it does take me quite a while to do that. I end up doing it overnight. I took it to the couch while we were watching, I think we were watching the World Series actually at that time, and stitched around the whole thing, and then I came back the next day to finish the layout. So here it is all stitched. There you can see all the little stitching detail, and now it's time to finish this layout. So it's time to embellish and get this layout done. So I'm just still trying to figure out how that cut file is going to fit with my photo. It took me a little while to figure it out, and then right here I realized that if I overlap it, because we're both wearing white, you can read the first part of that cut file if I put those words over the top of our white shirts. So that's exactly how it's going to work. That's how it's going to fit across the page and get both of these things added. So I'm going through the embellishment pack now. This is the die cut ephemera pack from the Heritage Collection, and I'm just looking for anything that might work and just kind of plopping it down on the page for now, and then I'm going to come back through in a bit and edit and figure out what actually is going to stay. So I'm adding a few of the vellum pieces that were in this pack, as well as some of the journaling pieces, just tucking them behind my photo to add additional layers. Because there are more colors in these ephemera pieces, I'm able to use them to add some of the other colors behind my layer that I didn't have in patterned paper. And it just adds some interest as well. So also thinking of whether I want to add embellishments around the whole heart or just in a couple places. And I had to step away there for a second, but I didn't do any work off camera, just finished going through that embellishment pack, and now I'm editing what I want to actually include. So there was that music note paper, and I'm going to add that behind my photo, as well as that light blue floral patterned journaling piece that's going to go in the upper left-hand corner of my photo. I did like that one-of-a-kind piece that I have next to my photo, but that it doesn't end up staying. But I am going to add a little cluster at the end of the title as well. So I've got a couple of those little stamp pieces and that banner. It's not a banner. What is it called? Like a prize ribbon. I'm going to add that as well and end up adding one of the puffy stickers that look like a seal, a letter seal. I'm going to add that to the center of that. I'm also going to add one of those photo corners eventually. I think maybe not quite yet, but I will add it to my photo. And I'm also going to add some of these pieces from the phrase thicker set. So I had a little bow to that prize ribbon, and I'm also going to end up adding another word to the bottom of my title that says always. So it just added some more gold and tied everything together a bit better. Okay, so still just playing around, trying to decide how I want to do this. I'm going to go ahead and glue my title to my photo. That way they're not slipping around and moving around. They will be in the place that they need to be to make that title legible. So then I don't have to worry about trying to get those straight again. And then I can start actually adding all the other little bits. So I'm still just playing around because apparently I was just super indecisive this day, but eventually I do make decisions and get things actually glued together. So I am adding that music note piece and the light blue journal card, like I said, and then I can finally adhere this whole thing down. And I'm not adding any dimension behind my title or my photo. I'm gluing it flat to the page because there's so much texture and dimension in that cut file background with the stitching and the shaker pockets. I felt like it didn't really need to be any more dimensional than that. So gluing down the pieces that I have added to the cluster to the right of my photo. I like the way that that looks. And then here is where I add one of those puffy stickers, which you can see I haven't even used yet. I've totally been hoarding them because I think they're adorable and so unique. It's such a unique product. So finally getting one used, I'm happy to have one on the page. And then there is that other word from the thicker sheet that says always. So it makes my title, you have my whole heart always. And then just looking through the sticker pack to see if there's anything else I can add. I find a floral that I stick in the upper left-hand corner of my photo, and then I do find another one, but because I want to layer them and because they're clear stickers, I end up adding it to some white paper and fussy cutting it out instead of gluing it directly to the page or sticking it directly to the page. This is just some regular printer paper, so nothing fancy. I've just stuck that clear sticker down and I'm going to fussy cut it out with just some fine point scissors, And this is an easy way to stretch your clear stickers. They can be a little bit difficult to use in layers if they're not in the very back, or if you have anything behind your photo, if you're not using white paper, if you have a pattern paper. So one way to make them usable in those situations is just to add a little white paper behind them, and then it's just more like a die cut instead of a sticker, but totally works the same way. So I just did it with the blue one. I left the pink one because I liked being able to see the layers behind it. I thought it worked fine that way. So I am also adding a few of the leaves from the sticker sheet just to kind of bulk up that floral cluster. And I am thinking about that little vellum piece. I had it on the page this whole time, was trying to work it in, but I don't think it makes it on the page. I think I end up taking it off. So now I'm just looking through everything else that I have out on my desk to see if there's anything else that I want to add to this page. This is where I add one of those photo corners. I think it just finishes off that top corner. There was a little awkward area where the paper layers met, so that kind of helped cover that up as well. And again, just looking through the stickers to see if there is anything else that I want to include. This is where I decide that I feel like it needs something to ground the whole layout. So I often do this. I get to a point in the layout where I feel like it's just too much white, and even though I like white backgrounds and I primarily work with white backgrounds, I often feel like they need a little something around the edges. So usually I will add a strip at the top or the bottom or both, or as I do in this case, I'm going to add a border around the entire page. So I'm just trimming off about 1/4 of an inch from each side. I did have to pull off those stickers and try and trim around them a little bit to make it work, but that wasn't too difficult to do. So I'm taking off 1/4 inch from each side, and then I'm going to mat the entire thing on that blue paper that you can see there to the left. So just adding a really thin border of that navy blue paper around the edge. I just have to trim that down to 12 by 12, and then I'm also going to gut it because I don't like to waste paper. I will definitely use the inside of this if I trim it out. So I'm just trimming out a little bit out of the inside, and left myself enough room to adhere this page on top of it, and that's about it. So I did decide to distress the white background a little bit in a couple spots, so I just kind of took the edge of my scissors and ran it around the edge, and then tore it a little bit with my fingers in a couple of places just to make it look a little bit distressed. It gives it some texture and some interest, and it goes with the kind of vintagey feel of this page. And then that is pretty much going to be it. So I'm going to glue it down just with my tape runner, and that is the page done. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this process. There are lots of close-up photos coming up so you can see all the little details of this page. All of the products that I've used along with the cut files from scrapbook.com are linked down below, so be sure to go check those out if you haven't already. And if you did enjoy this video, I do appreciate a thumbs up. That lets me know that you like what I'm doing and that I should do more of it. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all back here very soon.